Welcome to BeamNG 0.36, which is probably BeamNG's most deceiving update ever. Because when I first read the patch notes, the last thing I was expecting when reading about the new configurations for the MD series was a whole ass school bus. Like, how do you expect me to believe these are the same vehicle? And this goes for many other things in this update. So make sure to watch this video until the end if you don't want to miss anything. But before that, keep in mind that all footage is from a pre-release version and that things may be different when the update comes out. That's right, this is somehow the Gavril MD series. Back when it released in 0.33, the devs told us that there would be more unique variants coming in future updates. I thought that would mean a couple more configs with the same or at least a very similar body style. Not this. The school bus variant genuinely feels like a whole other vehicle, kind of like the Autobello Piccolina and its Baja version. In both cases, the devs could have easily called them something else and announced them as standalone vehicles. But no, they're just listed as any other regular config. And as if the school bus wasn't enough, there's also an armored truck variant, which brings the total amount of configs from 20 up to 32. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Starting with the school bus, while it is technically built on the MD series chassis, and the front end does look the same, everything else is completely new. Even the interior is completely different, apart from the steering wheel and the dash. And the detail on this is actually insane. So much so that the only way I can properly show it to you is by doing an actual walk around. Starting from the exterior, of course the front end looks just like the MD series because, well, that's what it is. But there are these new blind spot and crossover mirrors, as well as this front crossing arm, which actually deploys when you open the doors. But more on that later. Also, in case you thought this was a frog, it says school bus at the top. Very nice. Here on the side, there's a stop sign, which folds out and lights up when you open the doors. Plus, there's also these three openable hatches. Also, please tell me in the comments if you know what those are. From here, they kind of look like batteries, but I don't know. And finally, at the back, there's a working license plate light, very cool, as well as a Wentworth badge, which is the brand that also makes BeamNG's other bus. After doing some research myself, I found out that American school buses in real life are typically built on top of off-the-shelf frames. So here in BeamNG, Gavril would be the chassis supplier with the MD series platform, while Wentworth would be the body manufacturer. Like this video if you would have never even noticed the badge, sending you down the American school bus rabbit hole coinciding with the 1980s recession. Oh, there's also an emergency door. But let's get in the proper way, from the front. Now to get in, there is no button on the outside, so you have to press this one in the interior. And voila! We're in. By the way, take a look at how detailed the door mechanism is. Completely unnecessary? Yes. Extremely satisfying, depression curing, and world hunger ending? Also yes. As we make our way onto the steps, there's a neat little rail, some vents, I think, and a watch your step sticker. And man, just look at this. It feels like I'm in one of those American movies and I'm about to get horrendously bullied on the way to my seat. Or shot. Now as you can see, the cockpit is extremely detailed. Yeah, so before telling you all about that, I'll show you around the rest of the bus. Here at the top, there's a bunch of stickers about safety, like emergency equipment, a safety disclaimer for reversing, and some other legal stuff. And the cool thing is that it's all readable, so feel free to pause the video if you want to. The best one though is this. Don't lose your riding privilege. Follow these rules. Number 1. Do not let the drive the bus. Number 2. Do not commit tax fraud. Number 3. Do not write anything in Comic Sans. This is a formal school bus. Number 4. Do not look at the pixels in the texture too closely. They get shy and pixelated. Nice typo by the way. Number 5. Do not look at the polygons too closely. They get shy and polygonal. Number 6. Do not be surprised if the bus drives without a driver. This is intentional. Number 7. Do not spawn more buses than your CPU can handle. It may cause a rip in the space bus continuum. Number 8. Do not add Easter eggs to the text on the bus. And number 9. I ran out of ironic things to say. Gentlemen, the BeamNG devs have officially lost it. Now making our way to the back, the floor is pretty nice, and while the seats aren't extremely detailed, they still get the job done. Something noteworthy are the emergency hatches, which require a two-step opening process. super satisfying, plus 4 emergency window exits for rollovers. And finally, right at the back, there's the main emergency exit. I'm pretty sure this has to be the most detailed BeamNG vehicle to date, and we haven't even covered all of its controls. From the driver's seat, you can operate the parking brake, the ignition, and the doors through this panel on the right. But the real fun stuff is on the left. So get this, the devs told me you could probably use real-life manuals to learn how to operate this school bus. It's that detailed. So I'll start with the simple stuff, like the fan. Then on the second row, you can control all of the dome lights, as well as the main headlights. One interesting thing is that if you look up, you can see this little light panel. This is what's called the Elmo, and it shows which lights are currently on. For example, now only our headlights are on, but if I press the brake pedal, you can see that these other 2 lights illuminate. And fun fact, if your lights break, they won't show up on the Elmo, which is exactly what happens in real life. And finally, the first row controls all of the warning lights. Just know that by default, the master switch is engaged, meaning that all you have to do is open the doors and all of the safety systems will automatically deploy. And as if all this wasn't enough, you can also open the driver windows by using the node grabber, as well as adjust the mirrors. Though this last one is kind of a gimmick, since the actual way to adjust the mirrors is through the part selector. Finally, the school bus comes in quite a few configurations, including shorter versions and prison buses, which feature unique interiors. And yeah, this was the school bus, or should I say, just another configuration for the MD series. I have to admit, I am very impressed with what the devs did here. And somehow, we're not even done yet with the MD series, because we still need to talk about the armored truck. On top of looking insanely cool, it also features a reinforced body as well as hardened windows, making the truck nearly immune to side or rear impacts, something which I am keen to test myself, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that video. And just like the school bus, this genuinely feels like a separate vehicle. Just take a look at the interior. Now, while it's not as interactive as the school bus, it's still got some neat little features. Here you have the controls for the siren and light bars, and take a look at this. The antenna retracts. This is so cool. And on the other side, you can control the locking system. That's because from the outside, you can't open the doors by just grabbing the handle. You either have to unlock them from the inside or from the outside before you can open them. Plus, it also has these vents you manually operate. And so that was it for the updates to the MD series. 2 completely new body styles and 12 new configurations. And the crazy thing is that we're just getting started with this update. Because up next, there's the Ibishu Miramar refresh. This was a very requested update and it's finally here. But does it live up to the hype? For starters, this is a vehicle refresh and not a full remaster, like the one we saw with the Sunburst in the previous update. And in fact, as you can see in this comparison, there are no significant updates to the 3D model. The most noticeable change at the back are the taillights. On the side, we can notice quite clearly that the paint looks deeper, which is actually something we'll talk about later in the video, alongside all of the other small, but still meaningful changes. And at the front, the headlights also have a new material. And inside, the changes are even smaller. Now, all of this can seem pretty underwhelming, but as we've seen with refreshes in the past, the main changes are with the amount of configurations, which in this case go from 9 to 27. This is thanks to the brand new coupe and ute body styles, as well as facelifts and left-hand drive versions. And man, did these look good. Overall, this was a really good update to the Miramar, which I've never actually used all that much because, well, this was honestly depressing, but going forward, I think I'm gonna be using it quite a bit more. Now usually, at this point of the video, I would have already moved on to the medium-sized changes. But guess what? There's another vehicle refresh. The Burnside Special has also received the special treatment from the BeamNG devs. This was a horrible joke, I'm sorry. Just like the Miramar, the changes to the 3D model are basically inexistent. At the back, we can notice that the taillights are higher up, but that's only because this is a different rear end. From the side, nothing really changes apart from the rims and the paint being a bit darker, just like on the Miramar. And finally, at the front, there's a new bumper style, as well as updated headlight housings. And again, just like on the Miramar, the changes to the interior are even smaller. But again, just like with the Miramar, there's a whole bunch of more unique parts, which takes the number of configurations from 8 up to 22. That's because we now have a new 2-door body style, which has led to the creation of some pretty interesting configs. Seriously, what the hell is this scaffolding looking race car?
Hola muchachos de mierda, el motor de la BeamNG de especial tiene nuevos materiales bombo clarísimo.
And finally, the last big change in this update is the main menu overhaul. It now has 2 pages, with the main one featuring brand new quick start experiences, as well as free roam and career mode. To access all of the other modes, you have to go to the More section, where you'll find that some of the older ones now have a legacy tag. I get that about campaigns and Light Runner, but I really hope they consider updating time trials and especially bus routes. Though to be fair, I understand that it probably isn't a priority right now. As for the quick start experiences, they're mainly here to give new players a smoother first time with the game. But I'd also suggest trying them out if you have thousands of hours and no life. I already know that some of you aren't gonna like this change because you're used to the old menu layout, but trust me, you'll forget about it in a couple days. But what you won't forget about are the medium-sized changes, starting with more realistic deformation on some cars. In the previous update, the Pigeon received this treatment, and this time around, it's the Stambeco and the Miramar. Out of curiosity, I decided to verify this by setting up the same exact rollover test in 0.35 and 0.36, and I guess the results speak for themselves. But what if you wanted to feel these impacts, but don't have another kidney to spend on a full wheel setup? Well, if you have a controller, there is now support for gamepad vibration. If you want to try this for yourself, simply go to the control settings, click on the force feedback tab, select your joystick and enable force feedback while making sure that the 1-to-1 steering angle is set to 0 and that the strength is set to 100. Staying on the topic of controllers, the radial menu has received quite a few improvements. In the last update, it got completely overhauled with a brand new design, and I really liked it. This time around, there's no major changes, but it has been improved based on player feedback. You can now customize any empty slots, both on the main page and in the quick actions. Very cool. Also, there's now a new repair category in the free roam actions, as well as a couple new additions to fun stuff, such as random route, random vehicle, randomized colors, and empty or refill all fuel tanks. Plus, the explosion effect now actually looks like an explosion. And finally, there's some pretty neat improvements to photo mode. You can now save both the camera position as well as the camera settings, which is super useful. In the future, it would be nice having the ability to save multiple camera positions and settings, but for now, this is more than good enough. There are also buttons to remove tire marks and reset the post effect settings. Plus, the grid now has a small crosshair in the center. And finally, there's been improvements to the depth of field controls. It's now easier to control blur, focus point, and aperture, especially thanks to the brand new Smart Autofocus. If your car is on screen, this feature will automatically keep it in focus, and if it isn't on screen, then it will focus on whatever aligns with the crosshair. And on the topic of autofocus, it's time to move on to these small but still meaningful improvements, starting with improved depth of field. It now looks a bit smoother compared to 0.35, but it's not a massive difference. The biggest improvement is that it's now resolution independent, whereas previously there was an issue with the blur effect almost disappearing on higher resolution screenshots. Unfortunately, blur still causes a weird haloing effect around the car, so let's hope this gets fixed in the future. Please devs. Next, many default car paints have been reworked, especially on older cars, which by the way is what we saw with the Miramar and Burnside earlier. Now, every car looks factory fresh instead of looking like they've been sitting in the sun for 12 consecutive years. This brings us to the next small improvement, which is better looking vehicle thumbnails. And while this is in part thanks to the reworked paints, it's also because the showroom has received improvements to its lighting. Staying on the topic of paint, there's also been a nice improvement to the paint selector UI, which now shows a realistic preview of the paint. For example, this is how it looks when I make the paint super reflective, and this is how it looks when I give it a more opaque finish. Next up, we of course have a couple new missions showcasing the new content, including the Miramar, Burnside, and MD series, though unfortunately there's nothing using the new school bus. On the topic of missions, there's been various updates to the mission UI. For example, mission markers are now much smaller and in less obtrusive positions. Also, the mission selector UI has been updated again. Next, you can now record supported missions by clicking on this toggle above the start button. There's 3 new loading screen photos. Very nice. And finally, I've kept the best thing for last. The pause button looks different.